Maya never expected a simple inspection request to unravel into the kind of moment that would test her patience, her resolve, and her faith in the very system she worked to uphold. But the day she arrived at the prestigious Silver Ridge residential towers, the greeting she received had little to do with professionalism and everything to do with assumptions. Before she said a single word, before she reached for her badge or introduced herself, the head security guard stepped in her path and spoke with the certainty of someone who believed he had already solved a crime that had not been committed. "This is a private property," he said with an edge sharpened by suspicion, "and whatever scam you're trying to run won't work here." That line echoed through the marble lobby, drawing glances from residents waiting near the elevators, a murmur spreading like static as two reception clerks whispered to each other and shook their heads. But the moment that truly settled the tone was when the assistant manager stepped out from behind the counter and joined in with a performative sigh loud enough for everyone to hear. "Not another one," he said, as if this were a familiar spectacle to him. And as Maya stood there, steady and calm, she quietly realized that she had walked into a situation shaped not by facts, not by protocol, but by the assumptions these people had made long before she arrived. Hook complete now. Before the story goes any further, I want to speak directly to you. Tell me, who are you? Where are you watching from? And what city do you call home? Drop it in the comments, and while you're here, make sure you subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Your support helps bring more real stories like this to life. Now back to the moment that set everything in motion. Maya had handled cases of discrimination before. She had dealt with dismissive managers, hostile landlords, and building owners who thought rules were suggestions meant for other people. But this felt different because here she was not just an inspector entering a building. She was being treated as a problem the instant she arrived. Before she reached for her bag, the receptionist held up her hand like she was warding off danger and said loudly enough for nearby residents to hear, "We know the tricks. Flashing fake IDs, pretending you're with the city, trying to get inside apartments you shouldn't be near." And before Maya could respond, the head security guard added, "You're not getting past this lobby. Not today. Not ever." The irony, of course, was that the only reason Maya was here was because residents from this same building had filed complaints about unsafe renovations, unexplained structural vibrations, and water pressure issues that were being ignored by management. She had been assigned to investigate those reports, but the building staff had already decided she wasn't legitimate. When she calmly said she was here for a scheduled inspection, the assistant manager laughed a sharp, mocking laugh that carried across the lobby and drew even more attention. "You can stop pretending," he said. "There is no inspection today. I would know. I'm the one who approves vendor access. And if you think you getting into this building because you slapped together a badge on your home printer, think again." Maya breathed in slowly, refusing to match their hostility, but staying firm. She began to say she worked with the city's housing and safety department, but before she could finish, the head guard stepped closer and announced he was calling the police. Several residents stopped what they were doing. A couple began recording on their phones, and someone muttered, "Unbelievable," as if watching something they'd seen in viral clips before. Within moments, the guard was speaking loudly into his phone, exaggerating claims, describing Maya as someone refusing to leave, someone trespassing, someone attempting to impersonate an official. When he hung up, he gave her a triumphant look, as if expecting her to panic. She didn't. Instead, she quietly opened her bag to retrieve her badge. But as soon as her hand moved, the assistant manager whipped around the counter and shouted, "Don't you dare reach for anything." The residents gasped, as if the situation had escalated into danger, though Maya stood still, composed and silent. And then came the line that pierced through the room like a crack in glass. "You really thought you could walk in here and pretend to be something you're not?" The assistant manager said, "People like you don't work for the city." The implication was clear, heavy, and unmistakable. A few residents exchanged uncomfortable looks, realizing the comment crossed a line, but the staff seemed oblivious. The second guard, younger and quieter, looked uncertain, as if suddenly questioning the entire situation, but he remained silent. Maya's phone buzzed. The tenants she was scheduled to meet were asking if she had arrived. She typed a quick answer without explaining the chaos unfolding around her. Minutes later, the distant wail of approaching sirens grew louder, and several residents stepped aside to watch through the glass as two police vehicles pulled up. The head guard straightened proudly, convinced he had done the right thing. When the officers entered, the assistant manager rushed to greet them, spinning a dramatic version of events, portraying Maya as someone attempting to gain unauthorized access. One officer approached Maya cautiously, but not aggressively. "Ma'am, are you refusing to leave the property?" Maya shook her head and finally lifted her badge, her voice steady and measured as she introduced herself properly. She stated her department, her division, and the purpose of her visit. As she explained that the inspection had been logged in the city system 3 weeks earlier. The officer examined her credentials, radioed dispatch for confirmation, and within seconds received a response verifying everything. The shift in the room was immediate. The murmurs stopped. The residents lowered their phones. The assistant manager's expression drained of confidence, replaced by confusion and disbelief. The head guard blinked rapidly, suddenly very still. And then came the officer's quiet but firm statement, one that landed like a hammer striking stone. She is who she says she is. The silence that followed felt heavier than the accusations that had come before. But for Maya, the moment was not about triumph. It was about truth finally being acknowledged. The officer turned toward the staff and asked why they had not followed standard verification procedures before escalating. The assistant manager stuttered, struggling to explain himself. The head guard muttered something about suspicious behavior, though he could not articulate what that behavior was. The younger guard lowered his gaze, ashamed. And still, Maya's voice remained calm as she asked to proceed with her inspection. But the officer stopped her gently. "Actually, ma'am, there's something else you should know. When we contacted dispatch, they informed us that the city supervisor overseeing your department is already on the way. Apparently, your visit to this building is part of a larger inquiry." Maya felt a jolt of surprise. Her supervisor wasn't scheduled to join her today. Why was he coming? And why now? The officer didn't know the details, but one thing was clear. The inspection at Silver Ridge was no longer just a routine visit. It was about to become something much larger, and the staff who had tried to humiliate her were about to discover just how big a mistake they had made. Maya watched as the officer stepped back toward the entrance, glancing through the glass doors, just in time to see her department supervisor approaching with 2 additional officials beside him, each carrying thick folders and tablets. The atmosphere inside the lobby shifted instantly. Residents who had been eager to film a confrontation now stood rooted in place, sensing that something much bigger was about to unfold. The assistant manager, who moments earlier had strutted with arrogant confidence, now looked pale and restless, while the head security guard took a step back, as if trying to physically distance himself from the consequences he knew were coming. Maya remained still, grounding herself in the calm she had practiced countless times in her career, but even she felt the undercurrent of tension rising like a tide. When the doors opened and her supervisor, Mr. Hayes, entered, the silence deepened. He wasn't angry or hurried. He carried the same steady presence that had always made Maya respect him. But his expression made it clear that he was here not only to support her, but to address something long overdue. He thanked the police officers for responding and turned directly to Maya, assuring her that her credentials had been immediately confirmed, and then he addressed the building staff with a measured, controlled tone that somehow felt sharper than raised voices. He asked them to explain why they had accused one of his senior inspectors of impersonating a city employee. why they had refused to verify her identity using the standard procedures listed in the building's manual, and why the situation had been escalated to police instead of being handled with professionalism. The assistant manager began stammering excuses about suspicious behavior, unfamiliar faces, and possible scams, but every justification fell apart under scrutiny. The supervisor cut through his rambling with a simple question: "What specific behavior made you think she was a threat?" The assistant manager froze. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at the residents watching, and tried again. Nothing came out. The supervisor didn't need to hear more. He explained calmly that Maya had been assigned to this building following multiple safety complaints submitted by residents' complaints that the management had ignored for months. Furthermore, he revealed that the city had already launched a broader investigation into potential misconduct by the building's leadership, and Maya's visit was meant to be part of a coordinated inquiry. Instead, the staff had not only obstructed the inspection, but had treated an official investigator with hostility, disrespect, and assumptions that had nothing to do with protocol. The younger security guard, clearly conflicted from the beginning, took a hesitant step forward and admitted that the assistant manager instructed them to treat any unexpected visitors as suspicious, but he also confessed that the hostility toward Maya began before she even spoke. His words hung heavily in the air because everyone understood what he was saying without him having to name it explicitly. The residents shifted uncomfortably. Several looked at Maya with guilt, realizing they had assumed the worst simply because the staff had set the tone. The assistant manager tried to deny everything, but his earlier statements were already recorded on multiple phones. Mr. Hayes stated that, due to the seriousness of the incident, the city would be filing an official obstruction report and recommending an immediate administrative review of the building's management. The head security guard protested, claiming it wasn't that serious, but the supervisor responded with a sharp, controlled firmness. When you target and accuse a government inspector without cause, it is very serious. The tension deepened as the two officials accompanying Hayes stepped forward, distributing notices to the assistant manager and the head security guard. These notices explained that until the investigation was complete, they were required to step away from their duties. The shock on their faces rippled through the room, but the supervisor wasn't finished. He turned to the second guard, the one who had shown hesitation rather than hostility, and acknowledged his honesty. For the time being, he would be the acting lead until a temporary management team arrived. The young guard blinked, stunned, then nodded with visible relief. Maya finally spoke, not with anger but with clarity. She explained why she was here, the risks residents had reported, and the importance of ensuring that every building, regardless of how wealthy or exclusive, followed safety regulations. She addressed the residents, telling them they deserved transparency and respect from the staff they relied on. May nodded. Some apologized quietly, and a few approached her privately to thank her for standing her ground. With the air still thick with tension, Maya carried out the inspection she had come there to do. As she reviewed the lower floors, examined mechanical rooms, and checked structural access points, the temporary lead guard stayed near, answering questions respectfully and guiding her through areas that were usually restricted. Every interaction was professional, a stark contrast to what she experienced earlier. When the inspection was complete, Maya returned to the lobby where her supervisor waited with the officials. Mr. Hayes thanked her for handling the situation with the patience and composure that had always defined her work. He told her that her report would play a crucial role in the broader investigation into the building as management practices. As he spoke, the assistant manager and head guard sat silently to the side, no longer in command of anything, watching as the inspector they had mocked now stood as the central figure in a process that would reshape the very building they thought they controlled. Before leaving, Maya addressed them directly with a sense of resolve, not revenge. She told them that respect is not optional, professionalism is not negotiable, and assumptions, especially the dangerous kind, have real consequences. The residents watched, many in quiet awe, understanding that they had witnessed not just a correction of wrongdoing, but a reminder of how easily prejudice can shape actions when left unchecked. As Maya stepped outside into the late afternoon light, she felt no triumph, only a deep sense of purpose. She knew that holding people accountable mattered, that ensuring fairness mattered, and that standing firm in the face of discrimination mattered even more. Her supervisor thanked her again and assured her the city would handle the rest. And as the doors of Silver Ridge closed behind her, Maya knew she had left something more valuable than a completed inspection. She had left a truth that could no longer be ignored. And now, before this story comes to a close, I want to speak directly to you. If you felt the weight of this moment, if stories like this matter to you, then make sure you subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Your support helps these stories reach more people, and it truly makes a difference. Thank you for watching, and stay with us for the next one.